Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes tier list. I am redoing the ships tier list that I did over a year ago because we have had some new major ships since then and a lot of changes, so things have definitely shaken up a bit. So I wanted to go over that, starting from F tier up to S tier. Now with ships, there's fewer game modes they actually work in, so it's mainly PvP and then like a little bit of consideration for territory battle, but you don't even have them in conquest or anything like that. So it's a little bit of a more simple evaluation, really focused on PvP. So let's start tier by tier with the F tier. And in the F tier, so I mean, this is within the evaluation of ships as a whole. So just because it's an F tier doesn't mean it has absolutely no uses. It's just, it's pretty much bottom of the barrel from what you can think of. Wedge Antilles, absolute bottom. It's kind of like relative. I don't know if that's the absolute worst or not, but these five kind of more like in a bucket. Clone Sergeant, yeah, definitely could have some uses with the endurance as a perma-taunting tank to a degree. But Resistance X-Wing, really no play in like one of the worst fleets in the game. Same thing with First Order TIE Fighter. If that's not First Order TIE Fighter, I mean it to be, I don't mean it to be Special Forces, but First Order TIE Fighter doesn't really get any play anymore. You don't bring it in as reinforcements, and those are some of the worst fleets in the game. Jedi Consular, pretty much no uses, active uses in the game right now. And then Wedge, again, really no play. I mean, in the Profundity events, sometimes you want to bring them in to like get a buff immunity. But yeah, as part of the Home 1 fleet that really can't really do anything, all these really definitely factor into the F tier. And now for the D tier, these have like a niche use here or there and do have some play in a fleet that's not necessarily the worst, otherwise not that great. So we got the Gauntlet Starfighter, Biston, Geonosian Soldiers ship, Rex, Lando's Millennium Falcon, and Special Forces TIE Fighter. So Special Forces TIE Fighter, it's the first reinforcement you call it the Finalizer, calls an assist, and that's probably the most valuable thing about it, is calling the assist for Silencer and can really turn the tide in a Finalizer versus Executor match. Finalizer doesn't really have too much of a place in the modern day meta anymore. Lando's Falcon, it's just kind of nice as a backup. I was able to get some value out of it recently. I forget if that was in TB or a Galactic Challenge or something, but I did have some value at getting a bunch of turns in a row. There's something to be said for that, so it could come in clutch. Rex's fighter, the turn meter pass is nice, the extra tenacity is nice, and there are comps of endurance where you're using that to be either Executor or Leviathan. I kind of forget right now, but I know it does have some use. So, and it qualifies as a tank, so it takes some good hits. Soldier, you know, it's in the Malevolence fleet, but it's like the last thing you bring in, and it does some decent damage, so it's not like F tier or anything, but it's kind of flimsy at this point and really just relies on everything else, and that fleet is kind of lackluster at this point too. Biston's U-Wing, it's a decent ship. It used to be very good in the Home 1 fleet with Millennium Falcon. It used to be the counter to Executor before Profundity came out, or Triple Attacker Executor. But now with Profundity, realistically, most players that have all these ships are only using Profundity. With their Millennium Falcon and Biston's U-Wing, we'll go with like a Home 1 Razor Crest fleet, which doesn't really do much now, because the fact that it's just turn meter reliant makes it have no place in the Profundity fleet. And the Gauntlet Starfighter, or not Gauntlet, TIE Reaper would have been a little bit higher if I did this ranking a couple weeks ago, because we were relying on it for Leviathan mirror matches, taking away turn meter from everybody. But right now we don't really need that anymore, so it's back to basically useless. But the fact that it did have that kind of use, maybe bump it up to the D tier. Whether it should be under some of these others, that's a debate. I do try to loosely get this in order, but in these lower tiers, up here it's definitely in a hard and fast order in my mind, but down here it's kind of like, whatever, who cares what's the worst D tier or worst F tier, what people kind of care about. Anyway, moving on to C tier. And in C tier we have lots, so broke it up into two chunks. This is lower C tier. Got Poe Dameron's X-Wing, Cassian's U-Wing, Biggs, Razor Crest, Vulture Droid, and Ghost. All of those definitely have uses. So the C tier is more like, a role players tier, where they do have uses, but they're not even the primary role player. Vulture Droid, pretty nice, but again, not a super strong fleet. Razor Crest, I have yet to find a convincing use for it. I mean, if you're really trying to force it just because you like it, you can find something, but to me, it's nothing more than a cleanup ship right now. The same with Biggs. Biggs kind of goes along with that. Biggs doesn't fit well in the Profundity fleet. Cassian's U-Wing, actually, I probably have that higher than where I put it here, but the buff dispel is the big thing about it. It does have kind of flexibility with dispelling and everything. Poe Dameron's X-Wing, and again, these ships are not bad ships. Like Poe Dameron's X-Wing, it is in the starting lineup for the Resistance fleet, which does have some play. It's probably the least important member of that starting lineup, I'd say. And you're not doing too much to punch up. Ghost, I mean, Ghost is starting to get higher into C tier. It is valuable, but it's most valuable when you bring it in as a second reinforcement for Profundity. In a lot of cases, it's not even a big deal whether you bring it in or not. You have either lost the match or won the match at that point. But bringing it in second, getting the AoE, calling it assist, stealthing, all those definitely have value. Now the higher C tier, we got the Resistance Bomber, edging out all those others. Because without that, the Resistance fleet can't really hang on at all. It's got a mass swarm, got some healing. It can take some hits. Does some interesting stuff. So that's pretty nice. And the Kylo Ren shuttle, that's really kind of an engine for the Finalizer fleet against Executor, which is its main value if it can be pulled off. Which with punishing one, it's few and far between these days. But passing turns to TIE Silencer all the time, really valuable. Giving out turn meter like Candy Dispel. It's a very flexible support ship, for sure. Evan Hawk kind of does what Cassian's U-Wing does, but a little bit better. Dispel all debuffs. And gets that chaff for an Executor mirror match is the main value, or if you're trying to take it on with Finalizer, it has in the past just been quite valuable. Scimitar, recent addition to the C tier. I had it much lower in my previous ranking, but it is there to help you win a Leviathan mirror match in Fleet Arena. I mean, in Grand Arena, yes, you can also use it too. But there's something to be said for using Leviathan on Executor. But anyway, that's the main value. Other than that, it's a pretty trash ship. But that value is so good that that gets it to C tier on that merit alone. And then Sunfac, you know, our second Geo ship on this list. It's a pretty nice tank. I mean, it has kind of an auto taunt and it has an irresistible stun. That auto taunt's pretty annoying unless you get buff immunity on it. Even if you dispel, it's going to keep coming back. So that's pretty valuable, in my opinion. That is the C tier. B tier, we're really into the meaty part of the curve. This is our largest tier. At the bottom, I have Rebel or a Galactic Republic Y-Wing. B tier is just solid all around on their own account. It's a main player on a main fleet. Or overall, I just think it's just pretty strong. The Y-Wing fits that. It's not completely necessary by any means. You can really get away with it on a lot of Galactic Republic lineups if you just sub in. You could sub in Rex for it and, you know, have 5s, which is also in B tier too. 5 is just a little bit higher because it has some good damage, AoE capability, can ramp its damage. But the Y-Wing, they're close in value. Gauntlet Starfighter, I have it in B tier because I think just the way its kit works is really good. Extra defense, super fast, cleanse, protection up. It is really nice. I mean, it's hard to completely find a use case, but a lot of times in a Chimera fleet, I prefer to bring this in before TIE Interceptor because I'll get to cleanse and just get some protection up. So it's a real bailout ship, and then we do need it on the planet Mandalore in TB. And it works quite well. I can make it work. I mean, it's relying on a lot of other ships that are higher in this tier list, but it does have value. Rey's Millennium Falcon. This is definitely the soul of the Raddus fleet, and it is a fleet you have to think about, you have to deal with. It still is placed on defense pretty frequently in Kyber 1 even, Kyber 1, Kyber 2, and can do tons of damage, just nuke an entire enemy team. But the strength of that overall fleet kind of limits it. That's why it's still in B tier. Sith Fighter's taken a bit of a tumble since last time I did this rank, and that's just because of the changes to the tie dagger, tie Dorito, whatever you call it, because the turn meter mechanic is less valuable. It still is valuable because if you're not doing a mirror, the turn meter is very important. For example, Leviathan versus Executor, it's still really important to bring this in first instead of Scimitar. And all the foresight is really nice, so it's definitely a strong ship on a really strong fleet. TIE Echelon, that's what made Finalizer versus Executor either a thing at all or more reliable, because it can take those hits and really protects the fleet well. But it is limited by the overall strength of the Finalizer fleet. And then IG 2000, it's a great ship on a great fleet for sure, but it's kind of the least important. It's my backup last reinforcement. If you're running triple attacker lineup, you probably bring in Boba Fett and then Houndstooth. If you're starting Houndstooth, you also probably bring in Cad Bane and then Boba Fett before this. So it's kind of low in the batting order for that Executor fleet, but still really strong. And in territory battle, it really bails me out a lot of times. In the one where they put Confuse on you all the time, a lot of times I have ships die and bring that out, and it can stay alive by healing itself and gets a lot of double hits. So it's not bad by any means. So solid, meaty B tier. The top of the B tier, we got Emperor Shuttle, TIE Fighter, Boba Fett, Phantom, Spy, and Hyena Bomber. Shuttle, pretty flexible. I think it goes well on either a Chimera fleet or a Leviathan fleet. I love the heal. I love the cleanse, the Force Taunt, and it has great damage to start. And the protection up for everybody, it's just super valuable, super flexible. TIE Fighter, arguably higher rated than it should be at this point because Chimera has taken a tumble. They've really hurt that fleet and killing one of its key counters against Leviathan. But still, the turn meter gain from it is pretty much the main reason it's here. And it's just hard to kill because it dodges so much and does good damage. Boba Fett, super valuable on that Executor lineup. If I'm doing triple attack, or my favorite reinforcement, as long as Cad Bane is already in there, I like to bring in Boba Fett. Can really mess up enemy fleets. A lot of times when I'm facing it in either PvE or PvP, it issues the death blow by hitting under protection or ability blocking everybody. Just really, really strong. Phantom, I have it so high just because it's such a flexible value of a ship. It's not tied to a rebel fleet necessarily. You just bring it in, you're going to get another reinforcement soon. People use it with Leviathan. And with Profundity, for sure, it does have its highest value. But yeah, it's just a really good flexible reinforcement. Then Spy, I think I value it this high just because it has a unique capability of just marking someone randomly after coming in, even if they're like stealth or something. I'm pretty sure even if they're stealth. And then having a really strong mass swarm. So it is part of the Malevolence fleet, like Hyena Bomber right here too. And that has fallen on tough times, but it still is playing Kyber 1. Most people set Leviathan or Malevolence. It's super valuable for banner stealing. Like, you can win a match just by Malevolence lost, but it stole tons of banners through the buzz droids and the assists, and maybe Spy came out and ruined your run. So I think those are really good ships, so they merited top of the B tier. And now we're moving into the cream of the crop, as I like to say, A tier and S tier. And it's still quite large. All these others I broke up into two parts. We have TIE Bomber, Plo Koon, Ahsoka, Comeuppance, Sith Fighter, or Sith Bomber, and Outrider. So all these are really strong in the Roman Guard and play a big role on a main fleet. TIE Bomber, the biggest value is bringing it in a Profundity mirror match. So, I mean, you could argue I'm a little overrating it here, but that value just completely shutting down Profundity and making it possible to beat Profundity with an Empire fleet if you do it right is quite valuable, because it is giving one of the key counter mechanics to an entire fleet against quite a meta fleet. And this alone is kind of the reason why a lot of people don't even bother setting Profundity, because TIE Bomber just shuts it down so hard. So it's kind of high rated for having such a niche value, but it is a strong tank and has a dispel and burning and all that. Plo Koon, one of the best reinforcement abilities in the whole game. Cleanse, healing, protection, and health. really can turn the tide in a lot of cases. And with how strong the Galactic Republic fleet is now, this is just such a key piece in that. And it doesn't even need to be that built up. I mean, new players can get the value out of Plo Koon with just like a low gear Plo. You don't need him in relics. He doesn't need to be crazy. But if you do have him in relics as a high-end player, high Kyber, he's very valuable to countering Executor. Even before we had Marauder or anything, forcing a taunt, super valuable Terminator. Just super good. Arguably better than the next couple up, but I still have Ahsoka here. Just the amount of damage she does, like the way she can stick around. I was gonna say tenacity. That's a term of art in this game, but like she has a tenacious quality to her. Tons of damage, dispel, granting buffs, flipping debuffs, granting retribution. Just really valuable in the Galactic Republic fleet a lot of times, especially countering Profundity. She's a key player in that. But really strong in early game. It's just a lifesaver. How easy it is to get this ship. It's awesome. Comeuppance, just has a lot of power to it. I mean, kind of elevates the Resistance fleet from obscurity, coming in, getting all those assists and exposes. Can really melt people once it comes in. So quite a high value, which kind of defines that fleet as relevant. Sith Bomber. I mean, Sith Bomber relies on Leviathan and a lot of other, like Fury and a lot of other players on that Leviathan fleet, but it is still super strong in that fleet, which is where people use it. It's a nightmare to take out. It takes forever. Healing up constantly. Dishing out bombs, which is quite an annoying mechanic to deal with when you're trying to beat the fleet. It either will steal banners or ruin you altogether. If you have a ship that does a lot of multi-hits like Boba Fett, they just melt from the bombs. And then Outrider, definitely a key player on the Profundity fleet. Really generates that ult charge pretty quickly. And yeah, multiple hits. And just the Profundity was kind of designed around it. With on other fleets, it doesn't really do much because it's not generating like true damage from every instance of hitting. But still a really good ship. And in high A tier, we got some ships probably some people would argue for S tier, but they look bright to me. And some of these actually came down from S tier. So Rebel Y-Wing Bomber. Crazy good on Profundity. Can't be crit and it's like the medic for the team. This is like the whole ball game when it comes to off-meta counters to Profundity is if you can take out the Y-Wing, you can take out the fleet because that Y-Wing does so much. So hard to kill. Just comes back so quickly, just heals everything. If you don't kill it, then it's like, oh, they got attacks. They're all healed. They're all 100% protection, and it's super annoying. Protection disruption, another valuable thing, but just how annoying it is on the Profundity fleet. That's the whole ball game. That's why it's there. Or in A tier. TIE Silencer. I had an S tier last time. I'm not exactly sure what. Why I was thinking that. I mean, I didn't go back and watch my video. I probably could have, but it does ramp its damage an insane amount on its own, so it definitely still deserves to be A tier. But outside of ideal conditions, it's not that valuable, but it does have stun on the basic, very good. On Finalizer, it allows it to do the off-meta counters for things, but Punishing One kind of shuts that down, and that's what everyone's using now. It's not much of a barrier to having Punishing One be viable. It's viable at 3 stars, so that really kind of puts a damper on TIE Silencer. Cad Bane, my favorite ship on that Executor lineup. Without this, the fleet feels like it doesn't have as much punch. Like the amount of damage you get just from Breach being there and doing damage is crazy. Combine this with any other multi-hit like Punishing One or Boba Fett, it really just melts people. So it's just crazy good. And it can hide itself and protect itself a lot. TIE Advanced, this gets so high just mainly because of the reinforcement cooldown, decrease ability, getting out a reinforcement right away. Super nice. Never misses, but mainly the reinforcement ability is why I have it in A tier. That's kind of combined with TIE Interceptor. Without TIE Interceptor, that doesn't work either. And the fact that that reinforcement has a buff to spell and a cleanse is pretty unique. I don't think any other ship has that when it comes in. It can kind of mark people for itself to hit later. And decent damage. Just a good overall ship. Really makes the Chimera fleet, or Executrix fleet if you want, quite a contender. from the meta. And then we got Razor Crest and TIE Dagger. So TIE Dagger arguably could be S tier, but it's right on the cusp. I mean, with his rework, shutting down turn meter and dark side enemies, and the extra protection, like all the boosts they gave, really vaulted it up. I think I might have had a B tier before, but it's crazy good. No brainer starting a lineup now. Razor Crest, it's like the only bounty hunter ship that's always in the starting lineup. There's like variations of the starting lineup that have other ships, like sub out Cad Bane or Houndstooth, or well, Punishing One, maybe not anymore. But Razor Crest is always there. Get around taunts, force the mark, pretty good. So yeah, that is A tier, and now finally we have our top tier, broken up into two segments: lower S tier and higher S tier. So we got Anakin ship, Scythe, Mark 6, and Fury. So Anakin used to be the best ship on the Galactic Republic fleet. It is still super valuable and indispensable in some cases. Like, to deal with Houndstooth on an Executor, it is all but impossible to do without Anakin to inflict buff immunity, healing immunity. So key on multiple fleets. Negotiator fleet and the starting lineup, Endurance fleet as a reinforcement, but the damage is great. Getting the quasi bonus turns, I mean, it's 100% turn meter, so it doesn't work on Profundity, but getting those bonus turns is great. Unavoidable basic, huge damage on AoE, and reinforcement ability is actually kind of underrated. With those exposes and the offensive buffs it gets, it really packs a punch when you bring it in. Scythe took a big tumble from where I had it last ranking, and that's just because they keep nerfing the matchups it has, or like buffing the matchups it has to where it doesn't work. It doesn't work against Leviathan anymore because of the Tide Dorito shutting down turn meter on dark side ships, which is a pain because it's not an easy ship to get. You have to get a legendary that requires so many Chirotech on so many different characters, and then you got to work them up, and then it's a conquest ship on top of that, so it's crazy hard to get. So I hate how they're nerfing the value of it, but it does have a pretty high ceiling, taking away all the buffs, giving marking TIE Fighters and TIE Defender that will dodge and get lots of turn meter. Overall, it does have high strength as a fleet. It's just the use cases are nerfed, so that's why sadly it's taken kind of a dive down, but still has value. I mean, you can beat Executor and Profundity, I think, still with it, but pretty good. Then Mark 6 and Fury, I mean, both on the same fleet, obviously. Mark 6 gets the insta-kills and is valuable even on a Profundity fleet, countering the Sith Fighter fleet, and kind of weird interactions, but it's one of the best tanks in the game. I make it take 1 million damage and lose 2 stacks. So it's really annoying to deal with if it's the last thing you're taking out. Can lead to timeouts on its own and kind of ruin your day. And insta-kill's obviously valuable. But Fury I have higher because Fury is the heart and soul of that Leviathan fleet. This makes everything go around with the stacking defensive buffs and extra life for itself in the bomber. You can win against any fleet without Mark 6 when you use Leviathan, but you can't really do much without Fury. So super great ship. So these all four are really clearly S tier in my mind, but are not contenders for the top 5 spots. And those top 5 ships are Millennium Falcon, Houndstooth, TIE Defender, Punishing One, and Marauder, top ship in the game. So last time I did this ranking, TIE Defender was top, and for all the reasons I was talking about with Scythe, it is bumped down a bit. I still think the strength of this ship is insane when you look at it in a bubble. I mean, it is not flimsy, but you just cannot hit it, and it's feeding like 60% turn meter to the Empire capital ship. So this is where I kind of look at PvP value, PvE value too, because some of those impossible early dark side fleet missions are possible with TIE Defender just from sheer amount of dodges and turn meter gain, because they do tons of damage, but it doesn't do anything if you dodge. So the overall strength is just really high up there, but I can't make it listed as the best fleet in the game when Chimera can no longer beat Leviathan at all and has a lot harder time against Executor. Millennium Falcon, I mean, the heart and soul of Profundity fleet, of course. Assists, crazy, was like the meta before Negotiator came out on Home 1. So the amount of assists is crazy. Can stay alive, hide itself to where no one can get to it. Just really good value overall. I mean, anyone that gets it early is going to get great value with it, and you can kind of throw it on any fleet and find some use for it. But it's the cornerstone of like this top 3 fleet, so put it up there. Houndstooth, it's just so flexible. I mean, any fleet, it works anywhere, and until they released Executor, it did go everywhere. But on Executor, it's even better. Super hard to kill. One of the only obstacles for me when I use Galactic Republic against Executor. And just super tanky. Really, like, it's impossible to get anywhere in TB without this, even with the Executor fleet. Maybe not impossible on some of these easier missions, but still best tank in the game. And so I already kind of talked about TIE Defender. So Punishing One and Marauder. I have Marauder the top because Punishing One is just really made waves and is crazy good, but it's crazy good on a team that was, or a fleet that was already amazing. Marauder takes 2 separate potential Galactic Republic fleets and makes them like S tier counter value. You can beat literally any fleet in the game with a Marauder in tow on a Galactic Republic fleet. You might have to switch it between Negotiator and Endurance to do it right, but there is no shit better than the Marauder. Like I said, Punishing One fits into a great system. Marauder really kind of creates its own system. And at the beginning, people thought of it kind of in the wrong way of like, and a lot of people still do, as like, oh, it can hide Anakin. It can protect Anakin. Oh, all that Anakin. It's not about Anakin. It's about Marauder. The damage Marauder puts out can put Anakin to shame. Its basic it's got to be the biggest damage dealing basic in the game for a ship. The value, the swing value, everything. It is so jam packed with everything. That's why every roster review, I get on everyone to work on Marauder, even though it is 3 different Bad Batch characters that yes require Kyrotech, but you don't need all of them relics. Like I beat every like Profundity Executor. I have a Gear 10 Echo, I have a Gear 12 Wrecker, and a Relic 4 Hunter. So super good value, crazy damage, the hiding, the stealth, the healing. It literally does everything. The AoE when you have Valor gives like all offensive buffs to everyone. Ability block has like an extra life. Its health pool is crazy. Just the basic. One of the ways I am able to kill Houndstooth with Endurance or Negotiator against Executor is because its basic just does so much damage. I've seen over 200,000 damage on its basic. And you know, I've seen higher with it, you know, Kylo Ren for special or things like that, or after Scythe is given a million formation, but Marauder kind of does it of its own strength. Even with my small camp, even with that Gear 10 Tech. I don't know if I said Echo earlier, but Tech. Just so good. And Punishing One, I did want to have as the second best fleet in the game because it just transforms the Executor. The threat of Deathmark is, you cannot ignore it. And the triple hit on the basic combined with Cad Bane, it melts people. The Dispel, it's pretty hard to kill right away because it has a protection up. It stealths all the time, prevents stealths on other people. It's just so valuable. So that took Executor from like bronze medal status as a fleet and kind of put it silver medal, or in a lot of cases, yeah, like it's just the hardest to deal with. I feel like I can handle Leviathan on defense in Grand Arena better than Executor. Like I feel like I have fewer options for Executor, but one of those is Marauder, and Marauder is the best ship in the game. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you agree or disagree with. It's been a blast. See you guys later.